Put your red shirt on and a brown coat too. Everybody's joining the crew. We got just one ring that we rule them all. Hope you remember your towel. Get your Ulu feathers and your Middle guns. A sonic screwdriver or a sword +1. Use Valerian steel if it will get you to come. To the pit tank. To the pit tank. The Rocky Mountain pit tank.
Hi, I'm Guy,
Hi, I'm Troy.
Hi, I'm Alex.
and this is Geek Tank.
It's not a felony sized podcast.
Yeah, right. This is sort of what was going on in the green room before the start of the show that Alex missed because Alex was late.
Well, Alex made it, and that's all that counts.
I didn't mind the food at Casa Bonita.
No?
Yeah, it was I mean, it was fair. It was better than Taco Bell, but not much. I mean, it wasn't like there's a couple of Mexican restaurants down the street here who, this is, by the way, in response to Brent. This is not, in fact, as much of a non sequitur as it seems. Brent's question was, how is the food at Casa Bonita?
Hi, Brent. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob. So it wasn't, I would call it middling as far as food goes. But I mean, previously Casa Bonita's food was worse than Taco Bell. So just getting to the point where it's better than Taco Bell is an improvement. But it's kind of weird that there was like only 6 choices or something like that. That was kind of strange.
Uh-oh. Troy's locked up.
Yep. If I get kicked off, I'll be back eventually.
You'll be back someday.
He'll be back.
We really need to fix that.
Yeah, problem. I don't know. Well, that's not the problem. This is a different problem.
You're all low res.
Normally, my whole screen will go black when it's that other problem. Right now, it's just your connections were swirling.
Oh, well, Alex and I can see each other just fine. So.
I think it's your connection, Troy, because you're all low res.
Yeah.
I'm going to disconnect and come back. I think it's an internet issue.
Could be. I would, but I'm childless at the moment.
I'll be back.
I'll be Beethoven. So, Xanderman, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yep. Yeah. Are you uninterested in doing Borderlands tomorrow?
Not 100% sure. It's not that I'm uninterested. It's a time commitment. It's a huge time commitment. And so, well, I mean, it's pretty much all of Tuesday night. So, well, I mean, because if we let's say we started at 6, it would go till 9, and then I'm
not starting till 6. I got shit I got to do.
When do you guys start?
When we were starting our Borderlands before, 8:30, 9ish.
Yeah, I'll think about that. I don't know. Not 100% sure.
Think about it.
I will think about it. Yeah, because when you sent out that information last night, and I was like, So I've been pondering it.
All right. Don't pick up on the InfoSock song. That's cool.
Right? So.
All right. I'm guessing the microwave is being ran. That's my only guess.
Oh, you're on wireless down there?
Yeah, I'm on wireless. I'm in our routers up in the computer room. I'm in the basement.
Yeah. Sorry.
You look fine now.
It's like,
because
I'm hardwired. So.
Yeah, me too.
If I could run a hardwire from way over there all the way over to here.
Sure.
That's a thing.
Just get a hammer and punch through the floor.
If I had a hammer.
So anyway, I thought Casa Bonita was underwhelming.
Yeah.
For the price, especially.
Oh, for the price, yeah.
Did you get to go?
I got to go. Tara's ended up winning the lottery thingy. We only used 6 of the 8 slots because The time that we were available, they didn't have any tables for 8. Otherwise, we would have taken some guests with us. You know, we would have thrown the word out there, hey, who's available at this time and wants to go with us, kind of thing.
Right.
But when her brother was in town, and so we had limited time options, so we had to just go for the 6, which worked out for the family. Yeah, I thought that if the food was at least 1/3 cheaper than it would have been where I would have expected it to be price wise, it would have been better if it was half off. But you know, after getting like $4 tacos from a taco truck and them being amazing, going to Casa Bonita and paying $30 for a plate of stuff that was like meh. It's
It
kind of
was
like
mediocre at best.
I could have bought a bunch of tacos from a taco truck and had some amazing tacos for this amount of money.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to this kind of thing, my feeling is I agree with you. It's not worth it for the amount of money, but at least I'm just looking back on the days when I got salmonella from going to Casa Bonita, and relative to that, it's much better.
Yes, it can always be worse.
Right? I mean, like, kind of depends on how you look at things.
Yeah, I gotta imagine there's a big amount of just nostalgia for people too that really want to go because of that. But I was talking to one of the employees at the little gift shop, and she said that people will actually fly in from out of country to come there.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I hope that they enjoyed it enough to justify that. But I haven't.
Exclusive.
I haven't read up on it, but apparently Matt Stone and Trey Parker regret their decision to buy this place and keep it alive, which I kind of don't doubt.
Really?
Yeah, especially because of the whole kerfuffle with the let's get rid of tipping and just pay our employees more money. And then they found out the amount of money they would need to pay them to match the amount of tipping that they would get was more than they wanted to do. So although they get paid higher on average, it's not the amount that you would get, I guess, as a tipper, as a server. Not being a server, I wouldn't know for sure. But this is just what I was hearing from a couple of people that are servers. But, so I don't know. I mean,
I
there's
guess if
always
people are flying in from out of the country, they're willing to drop like major money for a tip. One would think, or maybe they don't tip at all because they're from out of the country.
yeah, who knows?
I mean, there are places in town where you can definitely make good money
Yeah.
off tips, but I mean, by good money, I mean like really good money. But those places are few and far between, and Casa Bonita doesn't come to mind when I think of those places.
No. Our friend Sonny used to work there, and he told me that they made the back in the day, they had these giant barrels that you just add water to and stirred it up, and that's how the refried beans were made.
Mm-hmm. That's
he's
pretty
like-
much how they do it at Taco Bell too. Which is one of the reasons why when I go to Taco Bell, I don't order the beans.
And I'm sure it's no less hygienic than all the other food.
Oh no, it's not that. It's the texture of it. So.
So, in any case, yeah, we were talking about politics in the green room, and since it's not really a political show, I wasn't sure if we wanted to even bother with that. And Guy was talking about it from the cultural anthropology angle.
Yeah, because I was talking about a lot of the different things that I've been observing as patterns.
And from what I've noticed, it's interesting that I'm guessing a lot of stuff that's going around is simply to reinforce what's already there, because I can't imagine either side's stuff that they're saying is going to change anyone's mind.
Yeah.
So
Probably not. The biggest problem I've got is things like what Brent's saying, every empire must fall. Except that it doesn't have to.
Oh.
Right? I mean, like, part of my thing is that I have been seeing ramped up fear on both sides politically for years now. And it's almost like they have to see if they can top the scary thing that was last year's scary thing.
Mhm.
And so it's hard to parse what's real and what's not out of it. And it's hard to see what actually is happening in the real world. And, you know, for the most part, a good portion of the things that we keep hearing are going to happen just never come to pass. And so that's always one of those things.
And there goes Troy.
Yeah, I was going to say we lost Troy.
I'm back.
He's back.
He clicked his button.
I did.
Stop playing with your button, dude.
No, man, I gotta.
You're doing it right now.
It requires attention.
Right.
Fair.
So yeah, I mean, that's just the thing. It makes it really difficult to see. That's the biggest problem I've got. It's like what's real and what's not. And for the most part, historically, it's been, 10-15% real, and the rest of it's all hype. And of course, the problem is you can't really tell what's hype and what's not until after everything has passed. As a great example, we never managed to get ourselves nuked in the 1980s. However, we were seconds from being nuked all decade long. Like, we were just moments. They were ready. There were times where the button would have been pushed if only one guy hadn't tripped and fallen on his matchbook. All of these weird stories. And in reality, yeah, I mean, there were times, but it turns out that Russia didn't have the capability half the time to do any of that stuff. So it was all just, saber rattling.
Wasn't a big part of it just the mutually assured destruction?
Well, yeah, and like their rockets didn't work and their ICBMs didn't work, and I mean, even if it had been an all-out nuclear war, it would have been mildly bad for the United States and really devastating for Russia because they didn't actually have quite the situation that we thought they did. Same with their space program. We were seconds from having Russia take over the moon and take over everything and all of this stuff where, I mean, I'm sure it's entirely plausible that could have happened. Mm-hmm. However, Russia did not have the infrastructure to maintain that at all. And that was part of what made the Iron Curtain fall in 1991 and 92 was because they just didn't have it. It was all saber rattling. I'm not saying that nothing is real about this. I'm just saying it's really hard to pick and choose. And just like you, Troy, up until Roe v. Wade was struck down, I was pretty sure all of it was saber rattling. But now I've got to admit I'm pretty concerned. I didn't expect Roe v. Wade to go down. I didn't expect Chevron to go down. Mm-hmm. That's another one that I was like, well, that's a twist I didn't see. So those are two that I didn't expect to see be dropped. And if you talk to people who are on that political alignment, it's a matter of that this needs to be done by state level. And like, there's a logic to it that they have, which it's not what happened, like it's all good. Everything will be fine. Roe v. Wade will go down and the states will pick up what the states did was just outlaw abortion outright. And you ended up with 7th graders having children pretty fast. I mean, it didn't take but like 6 months for that to happen. And it was really amazing. And so, I'm sitting here going, that went faster than I expected it to. And so now I'm kind of like, what part of this hype do I get into? Mm-hmm. And that's a real difficult question.
Well, John Oliver did a bit where he went into detail about the whole 2025 thing, and a lot of it made sense. He was saying, if you look at the damage that was done from 2016 to 2020, a lot of that was unprepared. They weren't necessarily expecting that he was going to win. When I say they, I mean his side. So they didn't really have a lot of plan in place, and a lot of it was fumbling around, and there was still damage caused. And so the idea is now that it's way more of a possibility, all these plans are being put into place because they want to take advantage of having the power to push forward all of these things. So, there's a lot of memes and stuff saying you shouldn't dump friends because of different political views. But for me, it's getting to the point that, let's say Trump wins, I'm not going to be surprised if all of a sudden same-sex marriages are banned.
Right.
And at which point, I don't know if I really want to keep any of my friends who decided to vote for Trump, because I've said before, you're basically voting for what's going to come. And if that comes, your lack of attempting to prevent it is essentially the same as standing by and letting it happen.
Right.
But again, that's just my view on that. And I'd hope to forgive the people who voted for Trump before because they were just duped. But if they're being duped a second time, it's kind of like, what's going on here? I don't know. I know I've got family members that are not going to vote for Biden.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and that's what's interesting about this whole thing from the cultural side, because there's clearly things happening. There's clearly there's a profoundly large propaganda campaign on both sides happening at the moment, like much bigger than I expected. There's a lot of stuff where I just do a fact check on it, and the data is so far out of the realm of logic. Brent, this is the first year I saw like none of the above. Right in Mickey Mouse. But it's so far out of the what the response is, or things that are interestingly worded. I have problems, but I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm not just seeing it in our political side. I'm seeing it in Star Trek posts. I'm seeing it in Star Wars posts. It's weird. It's like I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's the fandom to radicalization pipeline. People have talked about this and like studied this and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I was going to say this. All y'all's naivete is appalling.
What?
It's appalling.
I see that from the 2016. Not seeing the.
Brent, are you serious? This is the first year you're just like none of the above. Really? You don't care about the Republic. Okay. Cool.
Well, I mean that's the problem. And the post before that is every empire must fall. I mean, the biggest problem
Everything
that I'm
changes.
seeing,
It's not going to just go away. It's not a fucking movie. It's not a fucking story that just ends.
So
things will change.
And this is actually what I was talking about earlier, Troy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the. Sure, you might not like either of the choices, but not taking a side is consenting to whichever side wins. And to me, there's a clear side I don't want to consent to winning. But again, that's why that's all anonymous when you vote. But
yeah, but that's it's a fascinating thing to me. But what I was saying to Troy is it's hard for me to talk about that because, as Alex responded just now, people respond to the scientist in me that's studying the human beings as if that's the choice of the personal me who is doing the things that I do as when I go to the voting booth or when I do things or say things or think things, and it becomes a mushy mix-up. Like I'm sitting here observing that a hurricane is coming in or whatever, and people are like, why are you not nailing your windows shut? Well, my windows are already nailed shut. Nobody asked me whether I had nailed my windows shut. They just asked me whether why I was watching the hurricane and why I was observing. So that's my whole thing, is that I know that a certain portion of this, whatever this is hype. It's propaganda. I'm not saying that all of it is. I'm saying that there's a certain amount of it that is. And it's hard to parse that. Moreover, clearly, the best way to ensure that we vote for a side is to make it so that it is absolutely devastating if the other side wins. That's been the motive since 1968. Since literally Goldwater started this mess in 68. And so part of it is, I absolutely agree with you, Alex. However, how do I know that that's not just propaganda? How do I know? Because everything is altered and changed. And it's like what we were talking about last week when we talked about AI. I know AI is bad, but what words do you use? Oh, I had an extension, by the way, a scary thought, a shower thought that went with the AI thing. And that was, if you block AI from being able to use anything else as a conglomerate to train the AI, then you could almost use that in reverse to black out copyright laws, right? You know, this artist, he clearly learned from my artwork. Therefore, I own all of his artwork. That's what I was worried about. And it took me a second to think that through. But if you make a blanket statement of nobody can use a conglomerate to, or no machine can use a conglomerate to, or because of course Citizens United is real, a person and a corporation are the same thing. Another thing I didn't think would ever go down, but there we are, Citizen United. So, but that was a thought that I had as well. Yeah, who says you have to choose a side? I mean, honestly, Brent, if you don't choose either, but you vote on all the state stuff, it makes no difference, left or right. Technically speaking, you know what I mean? Like, you're not giving a vote to the left or to the right. So, I guess that doesn't make any difference, left or right. It doesn't add or subtract.
When I said your naivety appalls me, Guy, it was because you said things like, I mean, I didn't think they'd take Roe versus Wade. The right-wing ideologues have been telling you that for decades, that that's what they're going to do as soon as they could. And so they did. And you're like, how could that happen?
Yes and no.
Brent, it's I don't like either of them either, honestly. But we're looking at harm mitigation. We're looking at who can. No one in the United States should have the immunity powers that now the chief executive officer has. Yeah. No, just the chief executive officer. None of his other people have it. So you're going to start seeing things like what happened to Rudy Giuliani a few weeks ago, where he's getting slammed with actual punishment for doing the exact same things or similar things
for following orders.
Officer,
right?
Who will have immunity.
Now here's a question: since the president can grant immunity, do you think that that's going to cover his minions? I mean,
pardonhood. I don't know about I didn't see anything in the Supreme Court saying that the president could grant blanket immunity. The Supreme Court could give immunity to.
And not the particular one in question would even do that, because that person had the ability to, and it's just like, haha, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, he's a jagoff. But it's like, I don't trust either of them. I don't trust anybody, honestly, with that amount of power. I mean, it is just immunity. It's not actual executive, like the jokes about, Dark Brandon, sending hit squads and such. I mean, who did he surround himself with? Probably people who aren't going to just follow those orders, wherein Trump would surround himself with people who just follow those orders because he's shown that to be true. It's sort of like, are you gonna drop your friend of color or trans kid or somebody at a right wing Confederate flag flying bar or one with a rainbow flag? Which one would they be safer at? Period.
Well,
Or most likely to be safe.
and even if you weren't, the opposite is also, I mean, I guess I do want to respond to what you had just said on this one, Alex, because there is a logic problem that I have had all along. And that is, from the left, the right is absolutely racist and phobic of anybody who's not white male. And my father was on the right, as is a couple of our friends in our group.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to them, A, that's not true of their belief systems. B, if it is, then you're talking about people that I grew up respecting and loving all of my life just happen to be secretly, closetly evil, which I find really bluntly, I mean, frankly, I find that to be appalling as well.
Okay.
So I'm of the opinion that everybody has a reason for all of this, and all of this makes some sense at some level. I actually can come to agreement with our beloved co-friend who we all know who we're talking about, who is politically aligned to the right. I can actually come to agreement on things with him, including things like abortion and gun control.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually like the big hot button topics. His arguments and counter arguments make total sense. They're not right, but they make total sense. You know what I mean? Like there's a logic to it. And I have no problem with my trans child being with that particular individual who is on that political side. And so part of the problem that I've got is, though I hear what you're saying, I had faith that the people who were bonkers right-wing insane were actually a small minority. What's happened is the propaganda level has turned a lot more of them now into this same bonkers right-wing majority, because the propaganda covers those horrible sides with logic that makes sense, so that they don't have to be racist in order to do it, even though the end result ends up being that. And that's the problem. Up until Roe v. Wade, I had faith that the bulk of the people would have not solved or would never have allowed that to go through, which has held true. The biggest problem we've had is that now we have 9 people who can make these big choices for us. And all you had to do is change the majority of them to your political alignment. And that was something I hadn't anticipated. So it's not a matter of being naive. It's a matter of, I knew whenever they started swapping out justices that things were going to go down. But I had hoped that Congress would slow it down or something like that. Our entire government's designed to slow this stuff down so it doesn't happen like this. The whole reason why the Supreme Court is overpowered, and why we've been saying the Supreme Court's overpowered for so long, is because of this very problem. So it's not a matter of naivety. I knew that if they could, they would. I also know that the people who are truly bonkers insane are a minority in this country. It's just that they seem to be finding all of the right buttons to make them a majority. And that's the problem. So I get it, what you're saying. I hear it, but I disagree with the naivety. I haven't been naive about this. I just had hope that maybe the change out of the Supreme Court wouldn't have the outcome it had, but
I will totally accept my naivety, because I definitely was in 2016, because I didn't think there were enough people that would sway the election in the way that it did. And it's one of
Okay,
those
yeah,
things that
and I
when it
have
hit
to
me,
admit,
it's like a slap in my face. I'm like, damn, I was stupid. I didn't see this coming. Not that I could have done anything about it, but it's one of those things that where you're like, well, of course this is what it was, because I only have the lenses of what's around me and how things are presented, and I have to make sure that I reject the views that are coming from a specific um, what's the word I'm looking for, vacuum,
Mhm.
when it gets into a wind tunnel, and you got to seek out the other ones. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I intentionally watch a little bit of Fox News, because I want to know what are the other people hearing that are trying to counteract me. And having seen it, I understand what's happening. They're being, for lack of a better word, they're being bombarded mentally. Illegal
Yeah,
immigrants are murderers and killers, and they're coming to take your job and kill your family.
and take your guns.
The liberals are going to take all your guns. Isn't it's this constant fear after fear after fear thing that hits?
Mhm.
The book How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi talks about how you can be racist and not realize it, and
Mhm.
that's one of the big things. So when
Blink
you
says that by Malcolm Gladwell too.
but when you talk about your parents not being racist, that was Texas. I'm sure there was some racism going on there. It might have been subtle. I definitely see the racism that was in my family, my parents, and it was
Sure.
luckily my brother was the one who broke away more from that than the others and pointed all that stuff out to me and like, hey, don't be like them. The situation we're in is having experienced 2016 and thinking, well, and then when he got voted in, I'm like, okay, well, there's enough checks and balances. Hopefully, nothing major will happen. And that's where I was leaning. I was wrong. Major stuff happened. And so to assume that major stuff's not going to happen if one side gets in, or that it's going to be equally bad either way, to me, that would be being naive again, and I'm
Mhm.
not going to be naive again. I'm like, okay, this hit once. I am not going to stand on the sideline. I'm going to do what I can to prevent the one side from getting in that did the thing that I really didn't want to have happen, because there's other things that I see happening.
I, I guess my thought is this. For a long time, I was pretty sure that I was smart enough to not fall for the propaganda. And then somewhere around the late 90s, early 2000s, I caught myself falling for the propaganda. I caught myself being caught up in the propaganda. And I think the biggest problem is that now I'm wary of my own setup because I'm no longer assuming I'm immune to the propaganda. So then when we rolled up on this, because I think I had the same problem up until 2016, I was pretty sure that this was all hype, this was all propaganda, that there was something weird going on, but they wouldn't vote in a guy who wasn't wasn't a good businessman. I had faith that the people who were big on business wouldn't vote in the guy who sucked at business. I mean, if that's their whole pivot point was, America should be run like a business, which I disagree with, but at least I can understand that makes logical sense. Then I would assume they wouldn't vote for the guy who's bad at business and had a whole bunch of failures under his belt. And then they did. And that made me worried because I started to realize that means that they're falling for propaganda harder than I thought. But then I was like, okay, I get that. But if you're going to try to target me, if I'm your target and you want me to engage in the fear and engage in the propaganda, you can't just hit me with a little stuff. You're going to have to ramp it up. And I'm not the only one in this country, right? And I mean, I hate to say this, but the people whom this particular brand of problem solving are the people like you, me, and Alex. And we are the target of that propaganda. Now, whether it's real or not, I'm not even going there. That's not the discussion I'm trying to make. The problem is, I found myself vulnerable to the propaganda before, when it was all hype, when it really was just screwy hype and it wasn't a real thing. And I remember even my mom talking to me and saying, you know, if George Bush gets in there, that's the end for gay marriage. That's the end for all of these things. And all of this stuff would be over and everything would be done. And it will be the end of everything that we know and love. And the America would go down in flames and all of that stuff. And I was, oh, good heavens, you know. And then it didn't. In fact, I would just give anything to go back to a George W. Bush camp, you know, like, I mean, that regime would be mild compared to what we've had. So, you know, I'm not saying that was a good regime. I'm just saying it seemed like it was, you know, business as usual for the Republicans, which they have a bunch of things that I don't agree with. So,
you know who else is a good business person though?
Yeah, yeah, I know exactly. You know, Geek Tank is sponsored by Kieran Games, Geekway Homes, the Massage Wizard, and your mom.
Your mom. I kept trying to wait for you to take a breath so I could throw that in there.
Well, because I'm actually not. I want to come back to what Alex said, because I don't know if it's naivety so much as cynicism, which is just as bad. So the point I'm kind of making is Alex isn't wrong. Just, I think it's the wrong word. I've become cynical, and that makes me immobile. Like, I have become cynical to a point where I don't move. Now, I caught myself falling for the crap when it was crap, and now I don't know whether it's crap or not. Okay. Right? And so now it's not a matter of, that's why I was saying it's not naivety, but you're not wrong. There is a problem. There's a problem with what I'm doing and the way I'm thinking. And it's difficult. I don't know how to navigate this.
Yeah, well, I mean, all art is propaganda, as Orwell famously said. And yeah, I mean, we're being propagandized all the time. Have been for forever.
Forever.
For all our lives. We're steeped in it. And Brent, stigmatizing a large group based on the actions of a few, you're goddamn right I am. It's like, yeah.
Because the group's responsible.
Have a daughter of color.
The group's responsible for self-correcting, and if they're not self-correcting, they hold responsibility there. It's like, yes, there's a few bad police officers, but if the good ones aren't doing everything they can to get rid of the bad ones,
yeah, it's not helping.
So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, the full saying is a few bad apples spoil the bunch.
Yeah,
that's the full saying on that one. And yeah, I mean, we're constantly propagandized for and against things. I tend to try to, you know, have a few different filters, not only just media literacy and also, you know, different media things that I do listen to and mostly trust. But am I seeking equality and freedom or equality and oppression?
Yeah.
You know, or you know, things like who's getting paid on this. And so if you're looking for people, I mean, there was a meeting, what was it, 2 months ago, that was reported that Trump had a meeting with a bunch of, you know, billionaires. And like, word on the street is that the billionaires are not impressed by his economic plan, such as it were. But I mean, at the first time around, yeah, he plays the system, he works the system. Plus, you know, they thought it would be good for them, if not for the country, for them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Yeah. But no, yeah, we are constantly being propagandized too. I mean, one of the outlets I like is Democracy Now! However, whenever they start talking about anything similar to, I mean, it's Palestine again. It's like, okay, well, I mean, I understand where these people are coming from. I understand that what's going on is wrong on so many levels. And if you're looking at it morally, ethically, we're not talking about that. We're talking about power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we're talking about, when we look at the, you know, the two choices that we really have, or the two choices we have, one way to look at it is like autocracy or democracy, the republic or tyranny. I don't understand why anybody voted for him in the first place, because he's an autocrat. And if you believe in the American experiment, you don't vote an autocrat into office.
Yeah.
But by the same token, it's like, though I am a Christian, I don't believe in the monarchy of heaven. And I'm not trying to make monarchy on earth, where many do. I honestly think the whole idea of the all-you-can-eat buffet in heaven is childish. But yeah, it's just like what leaves people the ability to be themselves, to let their freak flags fly, to not get boot partied for it and by either the executive branch like the police, or by non-legal extra legal actors, and have them actually be prosecuted. Yeah.
I mean, to throw in another thing, I never believed that it would be. It just seems insane to me that a group would say, "Sure, let's let the person in charge have complete immunity."
Yeah.
It's like, have you never played a role-playing game? Do you not? Can you not think outside the box for just a second as to how this could go wrong?
Right. This can't possibly be abused.
I mean, it's a good thing I'm not president right now, because I would be doing so much stuff to say, "See, this is a bad idea. Now fix it and take away this immunity from me."
Right.
It's remember, the Supreme Court can still say what's official and what's not, so they still gave themselves some power there. And as I alluded to before, or mentioned before, where Trump would surround himself with yes men and toadies, Biden has not done so. So the ability for Biden to, round up the Supreme Court and, execute or have them change the thing and then write his own constitution, everything short of doing it himself, he'd have to tell people to do it, and whether those orders would be followed or not are probably not.
Yeah,
at least one would hope.
If it's to be believed, and I believe it, when Trump first got in office, he wanted to use his own security team and not the Secret Service.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he made the Secret Service pay. Well, he when they stayed at Mar-a-Lago, he gave them like the most expensive rooms, and so he was essentially laundering money to himself through the government, through the tax dollars.
It's such fucking small potatoes too.
It's slimy stuff, and it's
like if you believe in American hegemony, which I do. I'm one of those people that it's so crazy. I'm constantly berating America. Should be better. But I'm still like, we're in charge, and you better never fucking forget it. It's like, okay, well, I mean, so if you do you want the leader who sat there and had quote unquote love letters with the North Korean dictator in power? Do you want the guy who sits there and when his foreign policy on Afghanistan was say publicly, I want out of Afghanistan, cut out the the government that we'd been helping prop up, and then cut them out, but then like have American negotiators talking to like the Taliban, and have no leverage because he's already said he wants to leave? Do you want the party of not giving money to Ukraine to tie up Russia and Putin?
Yeah. Well,
he was going to weaken them.
He was going to give them money.
Or do you want them to become a near peer again?
He was going to give them money, but only if they dug up dirt on Biden.
Right.
And it's one of those things. It's like, he didn't do that. Yes, it's recorded. He did it.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah, that was what we were talking about before. Like, I'm fascinated by the things that go through that one. I have not, and I preface what I'm about to say with, I have not researched the entire trial yet on Trump. I just haven't had time, but I did see checks that were signed. And I don't know how that's not proof. I don't know. I don't know how people can say, well, it was fixed when there's checks that were signed. You know what I mean? Like signed checks. That's
for the mental acrobatics that people would do for what they want to believe. They'll say, well, they were forged. You know, they'll come up with some excuse to forgive it because they want it to be that way.
Right. Ego defending.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, had something similar happened to Obama, I can't say that I wouldn't have been in complete denial about it.
Yeah.
I mean, when the stuff came out about Bill Cosby, my brain wanted to say, well, he's rich. This person's making it up to get money off of him.
Right.
And that's just because that's how I've been brainwashed, being brought up and so it's one of those things that you have to totally change your mind now. And to be just, you have to side on the side of the victim until otherwise. And you have to walk that line of guilty until proven, or innocent until proven guilty. But you also shouldn't just outright reject victims' claims because the person hasn't been proven guilty yet. You got to go through the whole process. Any case, yeah, it's what people want. They're going to believe, and trying to convince them otherwise is really difficult. Yeah. I've actually thought, despite all of the things not done right by Biden, I see him as being too Democratic for the Republicans and too Republican for the Democrats. So he's actually really good for being right in that middle spot, but nobody really likes him. He wouldn't have been there had they had a halfway decent potential person that at least some Democrats liked on the Republican side running for president. But they're running a guy that the vast majority of Democrats look at him and look at everything he said and done and go, this is a horrible person. Why are you giving them power? Well, because he makes more money for me and makes the economy better. It's like, no, he didn't do that. That's your imagination.
Right. Well, Stanislaw Lem concluded that that there are a great many. I don't think he says even a majority of people, but he might have. He was really cynical. I mean, he lived through the death camp, so if you're gonna be a super dark son of a bitch about that, go for it. But he said that there's a great many people, or maybe I'm just changing it to what I think, that want to humiliate and hurt other people. And they just want someone to tell them it's okay to do and to not suffer reprisal for it. And I'm just going to put this out there, except for that, I want someone else to give me permission. I like hurting other people.
Don't they have to fall into a category?
Yes, but I have those categories, and it's my call on what I do and how much I do and stuff. But and I joke about this. I probably joked about this as a podcast. Like in the flow chart of my mind, at almost every branch, for many situations, is, have you considered violence? And it's kind of joking and kind of not. Like, I mean, whenever Roe v. Wade comes up, especially now, part of me is like, man, wonder what would happen. Would be, means and of course, opportunity, but grab a bunch of senators' wives, daughters, whatever, kidnap them, impregnate them, bring them to term, drop them off to the Supreme Court. There you go. Have fun. Because I'm a terrible person.
Well, they just sent them off to where they could get away with abortions. Right.
You saw nothing. Nothing happened here. But that's the kind of thoughts I have. And I've told people, it's like, if certain things happen, my wife and kid freak accident, a chunk of space lab hits them or something. Well, watch out. Watch the fuck out. I've told my friends, keep an eye on me. Because I might give away all my stuff, sell my house, disappear. See me on the news in 6 months.
No.
So.
All right. Red flags noted.
Yeah.
I will either stop you or offer you my help, depending on the situation.
Well,
That's and like I said prior to the show in the green room, one of the things that often happens with me is I start talking sort of from a top down view, trying to kind of look at the overview, and people take it as my personal view. And though, what was said today, of course, obviously is true too, but really honestly, even though I'm immobilized at the moment, that doesn't mean I can't be mobilized.
Right.
So
and that I mean, if we talk about top-down strategies and stuff, that's part of the point, is to make people not want to go out there.
Yep.
And maybe it makes people scared that, fear does that.
Mm-hmm.
Flight, fight, or freeze. And so the more people who don't go out and vote, the more people who don't try to organize, the more people who don't try to talk to other people, the more people who isolate. These are all things that the status quo at its worst, and what the fascists want. They want people to be scared. They want people to be scared to go out to the gay club, or else they're going to get shut up like in the Springs last year.
Mm-hmm.
They want people to be scared to be walking down the street. They want people, Troy, you talk about gay marriage. Yeah, but here's the thing. That's only the first thing.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lickety split interracial marriage will be.
Yeah. Well, there was a point that it was like jokingly floated around between 2016 and or getting closer to 2020 that maybe females shouldn't have the right to vote by the other side, and because of the repercussion that was coming down on the current president of the time, and then like, you're losing the female vote. Oh, solution: females don't get to vote. So I know these seem far out and crazy, but because it's been proven that the one thing was done that's, to me, they're empowered, and if they get power again, they're going to take that as, well, let's get everything done that we want to get done now.
Yeah.
And
here's the thing, I'm not gonna backpedal necessarily, because the urge is still there.
Mm-hmm.
But if something were to happen to my family, I would probably get rid of a lot of stuff, but I probably wouldn't go on a rampage, because that would be steps toward a civil war, which, until that happens, I don't want to add to. Because we get into a civil war, United States into a civil war, people are always like, oh, well, this is gonna be so awesome. All the fascists and the right wingers got all the guns. Well, that's not necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've mentioned this before, and anybody who studied this should be able to see this as well. The sides that began the Civil War after a year and a half won't be the sides that are still fighting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the goals that you were fighting for a year ago will not be the same goals. And the only thing you'll be able to get with any regularity in this country are going to be arms and ammo. Our near peers, our enemies, everyone will come out of the woodwork to just flood us with whatever they got.
Yeah. I often say, if you go and look at what the actual writings were prior to the Civil War, a lot of the people on the South made sense. It was logical. Made some sense that in context, it was still wrong. It was still obviously wrong, but through the lens of history, it was obviously wrong. At the time, it all kind of made sense, and you could kind of go, okay, I can at least see your logic. Yeah. And that's the thing that worries me about current stuff. Some of this stuff kind of makes sense, and I can see the logic, and I'm like, that's not a good sign.
Yeah. Look to the oligarchs. Those are the people in the South in the Civil War who pushed toward the Civil War.
Yeah, because they were essentially saying, how are we going to run our economy? That was their whole argument. How are we going to run our economy?
Mm-hmm. Our economy is predicated on slave labor, and
it's horrible. We hate the slaves, but gee, how are we going to run our economy without them? And that makes logical sense. Like I said, it's wrong,
No, it
But it
is.
makes logical sense. You can see how people would do that.
Yeah.
I did a 2-hour road trip, 4 hours if you count both forwards and back, with my 18-year-old son, and he was talking about different podcasters, and it ended up circling to people that own slaves in that, and so I was saying, we know now, at least through empathy, that's a horrible thing.
Oh yeah.
But if you were born into a family and you had only homeschooling and there was no electricity, you got no news from anywhere else, you believe in what you're raised in, unless if you're lucky enough to actually have that empathy implanted and go, oh, this is another person and I wouldn't want this done to me, so why are we doing it to that person? So a lot of it was dehumanizing people of color so that the people who might be feeling empathy wouldn't see them as people.
That's the critical first step, is dehumanization.
And this is still going on now, especially with the whole fear of illegal immigrants, is the whole trying to dehumanize them.
Yeah. If your position of privilege necessitates ignoring the harms you do, then you are incentivized to ignore the harms you do.
Right.
Fear of the other.
Right.
And it's actually, it was one of those things that was very clear to me living in another country that does fear foreigners. That's a big deal.
You mean America?
Yeah. But I was in a different country where I was the foreigner. Right. And that is an eye-opening experience.
Whoa, no! How'd he get here?
No, like black like me, foreign like me.
Oh, right. Oh.
But I mean, that's really true. It's exactly the problem, is that, it was a thing. It really does sort of, it opens your eyes. And you start to see it. And that is, it's easy to say that all of our problems are whatever, a group of people. But the problem that bothers me is the problems that they're calling on are illegals. There are only 10,000 illegals by statistics, and yet there are 15,000 people on those lists.
Isn't there? I think the correct term has changed.
Undocumented.
Undocumented, I think.
Undocumented.
Because that's part of the whole feeding into dehumanizing by calling them.
It is, but I'm just saying that part of that argument, when I looked at the statistics, the science doesn't even match up. It can't match up. You can't match it. There aren't enough people. You know what I mean? So clearly, just mathematically, you can see that this is a fear of the other, and we've just pegged something to tie all of our problems to. Not only that, according to all things, this is the same thing that happened in the country I was in and this country. According to all various things, the people who are not here legally or are visitors or whatever are not as likely to do damage to the country as the people who live here. Statistically speaking. And with the undocumented folks, it's always because they don't want to rock the boat and get caught. You know what I mean? And when I brought this one up, the individual that we usually talk to about this said, well, yes, but there's all those people who were in LA that did the thing. And he brought up the specific name of those people. I can't remember what they were called, but, and it's, as an example of how, no, you're wrong, because clearly undocumenteds come over and do damage all the time because of this group. And I was like, okay, but even if you are talking about that group, you're still talking about 200 or 300 people tops, which is still statistically a blip. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, even if you are talking about that group, that you can't, as Brent just said, you can't stigmatize a large group of people based on a few. You can't just say all of them are because of that blip. And that's the problem. There's all kinds of things that bother me about that.
The source of our problems is extraordinarily rarely people with less power than we have.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
What I love about this is if we were popular enough, people could start making the same complaints that they're doing about the boys. About the boys got all political. It's like, oh no, Geek
I should
Tank
got
got
that
all
brown guy
political.
on the podcast. Get the
Right.
cute girl back on.
Yeah. I don't know, Alex. You're pretty cute. Just saying.
I am.
You are. Anyway.
But yeah, no, it's the
I love this
special
new era
football
where I
started.
can say stuff like that without feeling weird. Like,
Hey, that's all you.
no, it really is. Like in the 80s, I would have never have said that without going, I'm doing something wrong here. There's clearly something wrong.
They just have to put the caveat, no homo.
You're right. Right.
All right, you're trying to get out of here.
Ish.
Okay.
I also did notice that during this entire thing, we went from like 4 people to 1 person for a very long time. We managed to scare our entire audience away. It was awesome.
I know not the audience.
Mhm.
I do not see them.
So, well,
I just
that's
see who
never been the
comments.
drive of Geek Tank anyway.
Well, that's obvious.
Otherwise, we would have more than 4.
There'd be a lot more screaming and cursing and
Right? I was going to say, however, Brent is still here.
Yay, Brent!
So,
Then he leaves. It's like, oh,
yeah. I'm going to head on over to my show and
your show, yeah.
my show, which is not going to be about politics, I don't think.
You'll
But it
see.
will
Small
be
artist propaganda.
possibly
I know
about
what you're doing.
dinner.
You're doing filthy propaganda on your personal show.
I actually kind of am. I mean, like, I'm writing a comic.
I know. I've talked to you about it, and we've talked about some of the stuff that goes on. Propaganda.
Yet another, you're not wrong there, Alex, moment.
I'm just quoting Orwell.
Yep. Just saying.
What did that guy know?
What did he know?
Well, hopefully we didn't raise your blood pressure there, Bob.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah, sorry, man.
It's good.
I mean,
Alrighty.
big thing that we try to do with Geek Tank too is we try to make it to where have the discussions that we would have.
Curiously silent this whole time.
There's a lot of stuff to be furious about.
There is.
Yeah.
There is.
But yeah.
Well, in the green room,
so-
I said I didn't want to talk about it, but we talked about it.
Okay, sorry. So, Vae Republicae.
Yeah. By the way, awesome Susie shirt.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do like the Susie shirt.
Susie and the Banshees. Alrighty, you want to do your thing, guy, and I'll get this queued up.
Yeah, because that's all the time we've got for today. We actually are 4 minutes over. Thank you all for joining us, though, and thanks for putting up with us having a political discussion. Till next week, I've been Guy.
I've been Troy.
And I've been Alex.
And this is Geek Tank.